Hello everybody, this is Aminus on Responsible Gaming. We're doing episode 2 of The Irresponsibles. Now 100% more episode of The Irresponsibles with 33% more guests. What else? Other numbers. One game. We're gonna review Gone Home today. This is a game very new, very recent, from something like 2013, I do believe. So yeah, not so much. And what else to say? Well, I'm just gonna introduce my cast, I guess. So I do have three new co-hosts tonight. So introducing Corvo over here.
Hello.
Good day, Corvo. We'll just say hi for now. Over here, looking very mysterious and somewhat static, we have Mirling.
Hi.
How you doing? Was it you?
Sorry about that. I'm still doing the best I can with inadequate technology over here.
That's perfect. That worked just very well. And we have the Clam of Thunder, Thunder Clam. Good night.
What up?
Everybody doing good? Everybody ready?
Oh yeah.
All right. So we got this. So Gone Home. Well, if you don't know about it, you're a little late to the game. We have here an indie game from, and I should have looked that up before, but to talk exactly, I do believe it's 2013. Yes, it is. Very close to August 15, 2013. So it's basically an anniversary show we're doing here. And for the 3 years of Gone Home, we're gonna review it. I guess we're going to introduce it and explain a little bit what the game is about. It was at the time pretty much a brand new type of a game. It's very much an exploration game. Synopsis goes, you are Caitlin. Don't remember. I don't know.
I believe you're in the Portland, Oregon area.
Yeah, returning from. Well, let's start with the imprecisions. Are you returning from your travels in Europe, or just from Portland, from your hometown?
Travels from Europe.
Yeah.
And you're going home back to Portland.
Going home back to Portland, and nobody's home. I think that's the very basic synopsis before you enter the very first phase of the game. I don't know that we know anything else. No, actually, the trailer says. What did the trailer say? The trailer, your sister is talking to you via the answering machine, and well, I'm going to spoil the very first thing you see as soon as you start the game. There is a note on the door that says, "Don't look for me," something like that.
And I just want to say about that note, I thought that was a very, very good hook. I think a lot of times these games don't really have something that draws you into the story that immediately. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You usually have to go through some sort of intro stage to get really going, but this game sort of just puts it right in your face right away, and it hooks you right away, and I was very pleased with that.
Even with zero additional information, if the synopsis is just this is a game about you going home and nobody's there, figure it out, that's just perfect.
I think though the game kind of requires. I mean, there was really well designed. The story is very sparse, but very well told. But I'm guessing that I shouldn't guess what the creators wanted to do, but because it's completely driven by the narrative. Like most games have a gameplay element that can draw you in, or before you introduce the story. But because it's all about the narrative, they kind of had to, give you the mystery right away, and it was really well done. I agree, but it's they had I think dealing with some of the I don't know.
There's always a. I mean, you could enter the house and start looking around and know nothing of what's going on, and then find a note. But I feel like it's not they say it's a mention, but it's not that big a mention. So it's not like you can go through X rooms and then the story starts. It's kind of like the real synopsis is on the entrance door, and then you start getting actual information as soon as you enter the house.
Yeah, the note tells you almost nothing about what you're actually going to find in the house. which I think they did a great job of exposing you to this strange thing that's going on in your house without really talking about anything specifically, which is a wonderfully like kind of cryptic thing for a teenager to leave in a note.
Yeah, actually, I wasn't sure. I actually had the opposite reaction when I did my stream to remember a little bit how the game works very recently. I had the reaction of, I thought the sister gone missing and that being like really a tension point, and just the fact that she's missing and she doesn't want to be found, I thought it was more like something that we might have wanted to postpone. When I tried the game again, I looked at this. I'm like, oh, okay, mystery, quote unquote. What's weird about this story is already exposed right there in my face. The sister is gone and she doesn't want to be found. I guess I kind of had the reaction that it was kind of soon, but.
Well, I have a different viewpoint on that. I think her saying that she doesn't want to be found doesn't necessarily give anything away. And in fact, the style of the game, I've played a lot of games like Penumbra or Soma or Amnesia, and it's very reminiscent of that genre of game.
Yeah.
So I actually thought that she could have easily like killed herself or something much worse than just running away.
But it does give away that it's going to be about her missing, though. I thought even that you might have.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but yeah, either way, you're very much getting into this house with the intent of, at the very least, figure out what the hell happened to your sister, and well, yeah.
Well, I think it's also like to get into. It's a good idea. I mean, it's kind of, it seems obvious, but it's a very good like example of how they use like, for the lack of a better word, level design. Like you start off and you're in this. I guess it's a I don't know what, antechamber or something. But you're looking. You're looking at the door, and the only way you can go is through the door. So you can't. There's no way you can go without seeing the letter. And the way I don't know, the way it's designed, there's actually a pretty there's other places in the game which we can get into later where how you enter a room kind of leads to like what they want you to see to tell the story. But that's just kind of an early example of they start off with like the your own monologue saying, "Oh, I'm coming home," and then you're at this house and you see a door and the lights are like in front of the door, and then as someone who's exploring space, the first thing you do is explore the door. And even if you don't, eventually you had to deal with the door, and then you had to deal with what's behind it. And then there's the letter, which is like giving you an exposition, but also like leaving you like wondering what's going on. Yeah. And that's
So, Mirling, so it's our first stream, so I don't actually know a lot about your gaming habits. Did you have any kind of predetermined idea when you got into when you started the game and you saw kind of like the way it looked and kind of how the story was presented to you?
Well, I liked that it gave you a little something to grab onto more quickly in terms of the letter on the front door. I was worried that it would be more like a horror game, because I scare a little bit easily, and I think I even asked people to make sure that wasn't the case, that there weren't going to be like a lot of jump scares.
Okay.
So having the context of what seemed like a runaway situation made that less alarming.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I was just going to say, so that you're aware right now, we're going to try as hard as we can to split this cast or episode in spoiler-free and spoilerific part. And I think as much as we can, we're going to start talking a bunch about the gameplay and kind of how the game actually works. And then we'll start going into like the narration and the actual story and how like the gameplay helps the story go somewhere. And as soon as we just really can't help it anymore, we'll give a little warning and we'll go into full spoiler mode and tell you everything about the story. So past that point, you better have played the game, or I guess have no intent to play it without any spoiler. So we're almost ready to get inside the house. We're still like on the front door. We're not in the house just
Yeah.
like yet.
Yeah, let's get in there.
Gameplay.
Actually,
Yeah.
I did have a question because when I replayed the game recently to like refresh myself, and I was trying to remember. I was trying to remember how I played it the first time, but I couldn't remember how I figured out where the key was because the doors were locked.
So I was just I was gonna say like this is how you get to how is this game going to work? Is gonna have you try to figure out what the heck you can actually do. Or I guess it's a bit of my answer. That's how I went at it. I went at it like I know games. Okay, I've played games. I know all about games. I went in there. Like, what can I do?
I actually, I'm kind of from a suburban neighborhood. I grew up in North Carolina, and so I knew from growing up there, people always had a house key outside their house, somewhere hidden, whether it was under a potted plant or on top of a light fixture, or under the rug, so somewhere like that. So I knew pretty much immediately to kind of look around the kind of mundane objects on the porch for the key, just because I know that it looks like a suburban house to me, and that's kind of like what would be good. And I thought that was kind of cute that they went with that suburban house kind of motif. I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
I was just trying to remember if there was like they specifically gave you a clue, or if it's just like the design of the level where, like you. I mean, I think you're right. I kind of grew in a suburban area too, but I feel like the trope of having like the heat kit somewhere under the rug or something is well enough known that I guess my guess is most people can figure it out. It must be hidden somewhere, even if they've never played a game before. Just because that's something that exists in life. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, that's also why I wanted to frame it as a gameplay mechanic, because the way I went about it is like I'm in a hallway, the door is closed, there is no inventory of any sort. I'm looking around, and there is like how many things can I click on, and then that's kind of how I got into the entire the game teaches me, okay, you're just gonna be looking through stuff, because the first thing that you end up noticing is that there is a cupboard, and you click on it and you start seeing objects, and you can pick them up, and that's how you end up figuring out where the key is. So I very much discovered about the gameplay mechanic via this interaction. I guess it was very much like, oh, that's the game where you just look through stuff, kind of.
No, that's a good point. Also, not only does it make you open doors, which like you do, a lot of what you do in the game is opening cupboards and stuff and finding stuff inside, and that's the first thing you have to do. But the second thing you have to do is pick up a duck, and then you can look around at it, and you can kind of learn about that mechanic too. And you can't proceed to the rest of the house without doing those two things.
Yeah. So far, it should make entire sense to you. You open a cupboard and you pick up a duck. And that's how you figure out how to get into your house.
Easy peasy.
I promise we're not going to do this for every single step of the game, but Mirroling, what's your experience of like discovering how to get inside the house? Basically this.
I didn't really have that much. I banged around a little bit, I guess, but I didn't really have a lot of trouble with that particular part. I did get stuck at other parts, but we're not there.
Yeah. So, strictly speaking, the game basically has click to interact. So we're there. We got the key. We can get inside the door, and we enter the house. So click to interact. You can open door. You can open drawers. You can open cupboards. You can flick on light switches, and then it has a pretty neat zoom feature on the right click, where it's going to just zoom wherever you're pointing at, so you can see things in a little bit more detail. And then whenever you find one of the many interactable objects in the game, you can pick one up, and if you hold it, you can start kind of looking around it in 3D. And I guess I mean now the real narration begins, and I guess I would say the entire game revolves a lot around the trope of, here is a bead of paper with a bunch of information on it that you found in a drawer, and look at it and see what kind of information you get from it, right? There's a lot of information on paper in this game.
There is, yeah, there is. There's also a lot of audio information as well. One thing that I wanted to say about sort of the object density in this game is that I thought it was very good. I don't think there was too little, such as to like not give you a feel that this was kind of a real house.
Yeah.
And I also didn't think there was too many objects, so as to like waste your time, kind of, just fiddling with objects in a room for an hour. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I thought
go
that was good. I thought that was a good piece of game design to keep it at that density. Yeah.
I also thought it was because the game takes place in 1995 or 90. It takes place in the 90s, right?
It is 95. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay. And I don't know. There's a lot of objects in there where they're also like based on real things that existed in 95 that are, at least for me, and I don't know. I'm actually genuinely curious, like people who are younger than me, like significantly, have the different experience. But like just seeing something like a binder or like a textbook that I actually had in school, it had more interest than just a random. Like if everything was just like fake companies and stuff, it'd be a lot less interesting. But just let's rummaging around stuff itself, because they're based on real objects that you don't see that much anymore or at all, but like that were actually evoking memories from my past.
It's soon gonna feel like archaeology to the kids who are gonna play the game. They're gonna be like, "What is this? People wrote on paper and sent it to each other."
That's true.
They should have put a fax machine in that game.
So I think that was actually one of my favorite parts of the game. The general nostalgia and just good curation, one of those things of the items that are just around. It felt like very much like a house from the mid 90s.
Yeah.
All picking up all the different things, just spending time looking at it. I mean, I must have taken 4 or 5 hours to finish the game, which it doesn't really have that much content. To necessarily, you don't have to take that long for sure. But I spent a lot of time just kind of enjoying the atmosphere.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because it reminds me, we did the first episode of The Irresponsibles on Ready Player One, and I actually was feeling like the culture and the reference were a little too much crammed and kind of just forced and just one after the other repeatedly, etc. But I definitely didn't get the sense for this one, which also might tell you that I got a little more. I guess Ready Player One is like very early 80s and late 70s, and it kind of missed my age. And 90s is a little old for me, but I kind of related a little more to the content. So I was probably also more excited every time I was seeing like an X-Files poster or somewhat of the random VHS that was laying around the living room.
Right.
Street Fighters. Street Fighter is a big part.
I actually did record episodes of the X-Files and then write episodes on them. And I had them lying around. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah, you're not alone.
Oh, no. For sure.
Whose house am I in? It is kind of... it actually kind of brings up a question to me, though, about how this game is... It's a very short story in a relatively small space. But I wonder if someone tried to make a game that was like longer and had more spaces, if they would be able to put the same density of objects in them without it becoming seeming tiring.
Yeah.
Because I think it was playing a game that was really long.
So
I would lose the desire to pick up everything I saw at some point.
Yeah, there's a game series called Penumbra. I mentioned it a little bit before, and it's firmly in the horror category, but it is a point-and-click sort of interact game, and it has a much more sparse density of items that are interactable in the game.
Yeah.
Pretty much just like little plot artifacts that you touch, and it has an audio file that reveals some of your past. So yeah, I think at least the makers of Penumbra were keenly aware of that.
Yeah, I feel like a great part of the point is also to expose to expose you to a bunch of mundane items to really get you connected to the kind of the house and the life of the people, I guess. A bunch of them. Yeah, there's a good part of the items that just are there so that you can see, oh look, it's a book, or look, it's a magazine, or TV, or VHS, or a record, and then there's the other ones that are meaningful to the gameplay mechanics or to the stories that are very obviously a letter, a receipt, a flyer, notes, and things like that. There's kind of like those two types of items.
Well, I think, point of fact, I don't think there's any plot elements or story elements that are actually provided to you via like the 3D objects that you can view. I could be wrong. I might be missing something, but all the plot important items are either like a piece of paper, which is like an image file, or it's an audio file. But it allows you to look at things, but I believe, or my guess is that their main purpose is specifically to give you a feel of the house and the inhabitants. Can't remember any plot like important.
I can remember one. There's a specific item in a bathroom that we actually talked about before the stream.
I just have the vague memory of
we'll get that.
Yeah, some objects trigger audio clips. Like if you pick an object and then an audio clip starts playing.
Yeah. That's what I'm referring to.
But no, I think you're right. You're right. It would have worked. It was a combination of audio clips and the object, though. But you're right. That was you're right.
Yeah. So I want to go for it.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna touch on the audio, if that's cool. I just have a couple.
I just want to say we'll leave for later exactly why we're hearing audio clip, I guess. But yeah, you do hear you hear some messages and some explanations for random reasons when you make a breakthrough in the game, I guess. Yeah. What do you want to say about it?
Yeah, I have a couple things on the audio. I thought the ambient weather noises were really nice.
Oh, those.
I thought the thunder effects and the rain on the window. I thought they did a fantastic job, and it set the mood for the game. And it's the type of game that you want to kind of just like put on some headphones and sort of get lost. And I think that those sounds and those visuals really helped knit that together.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like the audio clips were also really at their perfect place in this game for, like an audio clip is going to play and you're in a game where basically there's very little sound going unless it's the sound of the rain or your steps or whatever. And an audio clip is playing and you're just looking around, looking at things, picking them up, and it's like almost the one and best place to have audio clips in a game, I feel, because it's just talking to you and you just you can keep playing entirely and look at things while the audio clip is playing.
Yeah, for sure.
And
sorry. One criticism is that it sounded like the character that you play is wearing some like combat boots or something. she's got some heavy ass footfalls, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's one of those things in games where it's almost any medium, but I think especially in games because you're allowed to, if you go back and play it, you can like explore space in minute detail. There's a lot of I don't know if you noticed, but the doors are ridiculously thick if you actually look at them closely. I mean, there's a lot of things that I think in the first playthrough you may not. Well, I didn't notice the footfalls as you did, but I don't know. There are probably some things that they made louder so they could have an impact. Well, but like for some people, they'll be, wait, that's too loud.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we can nitpick because there's lots of good things to say about this. So I'll go with the nitpick with the objects. There are a lot of the same kind of food or the same pen or the same this and that, which I basically understand. Like you cannot make 10,000 different 3D models, but that's the one part where you're like, oh yeah, okay, I've seen that square box.
The thing that stuck out for me is like this family has so many 3-ring binders laying around in their house.
Yeah.
That's true.
There must have been like 8 of them just laying around.
Cans of food, marquee pens, and the other nitpicky on the gameplay is that 50% of the content happens on a flat piece of paper, plastic, that's kind of interesting, like a receipt or a flyer, etc. And then the other 50% of the content is in a drawer with fake post-its that are actually in the texture of the drawer, and a couple pens, and one piece of mail with where somebody wrote something on it, or like the one single trashed piece of paper in a can that you pick, and that actually happens to be trashed paper from 5 years ago, like the one piece of paper in that rubbish. So,
my favorite is actually in, I guess, in the parents' bit. It's not much of a spoiler. If you look in the drawers, it's just a picture of clothes at the bottom of the drawer.
Yeah.
I think that's like an image file, a clothes.jpg.
But like, I don't know. It just feels like, I think you're right, and it take away. It gives like it shows the gameness of the game that might take you out of it. But I mean, and so it's a good criticism. But I also think it's kind of like the limitations of what a small team can do. Probably, I mean, they probably had to like make some decisions about like what to focus on and what not to.
Yeah.
They probably had just enough so that you don't hit the wall too often. For a game that's still like supposed to be about this, right? It's supposed to be looking through stuff and finding things.
Look, if my boss walks into my office and says, "I need you to model some folded clothes," I'm not going to do that. I'm gonna give him clothes.jpg and slap it in there.
Yeah. Well, wait for the AAA redo in like 2 years.
It's not going to be a TIFF. It's going to be a JPEG.
No, it's going to be like a layered TIFF. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, there weren't many pixels in that JPEG, man. I don't think it was a TIFF.
Right.
So what else do we have on the gameplay? I mean, it's most of the gameplay, right? Oh yeah.
Well, there is one. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say this is gonna lead. I'm not gonna say any specific spoilers, but I think it's worth saying that like they want to present the story in a certain order, and in order to do that, they kind of have a I don't have to use the word, but like a Metroidvania kind of thing, or maybe not even that, but like they block off certain areas of the map so that you can only discover things at certain points, and that's a useful mechanic. I mean, it tells the story really well, but I kind of worry or wonder if, like, I don't know if that's going to be, if more of these games going to come out, if that's just going to be like one of the norms of how these games work, where there's always going to be some parts of the map that's like blocked off, or if I don't know if it's a limitation, they'll stick it on people's minds eventually.
Yeah, I wrote down the same note my note right here is I said essentially a Metroidvania game. You're walking around, you're finding keys, you're getting information on where stuff is and secret stuff, and it's very much like that.
Your narration would be very, very, very hard if you could literally pick any piece of information about the storyline at any moment of your playthrough. I think it would be extremely hard to have a somewhat like to have twists or to have revelation or anything if you can just walk in and go straight to the last piece of information, right?
Right. Yeah, maybe it's. I mean, it might. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Lisa. I'm sorry.
Am I cutting out?
Just
a little bit. You're okay then.
I was just trying to say it's hard to come up with a coherent story that can be told in any order.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think there might be. I mean, I was just thinking about Her Story, which actually kind of does that.
Yeah.
But it still probably limits the kinds of stories you can tell.
It still has to be extremely hard for them.
Right.
I think that the weirdness kind of springs from the story taking place inside of a house, that you would normally be able to have full freedom to move anywhere. And if you told a story in, say like an office building, I think you could sort of more reasonably lock doors and, Metroidvania it out and have it make more sense.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, they had a couple smart ways of going about it, such as like try and find code for a locker, or I mean,
Yeah.
finding a key in a house is not that far fetched, right? A door is closed. You need to kind of find the key somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just realized I never found the key to the dad's file cabinet.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Yeah,
Oh,
I never found the code for that.
So my playthrough, I went around room one by one, and I found the cabinet, and then the second thing I do is going to the next room, and in a file that I look at, I see 4 numbers. I'm like, oh well, I guess that was here for me.
Yeah, I never got that one.
Yeah,
I'm pretty
it's
far
something to-
away from what you would call a completionist.
I see.
I kind of I play games kind of the way that I would play them, I guess, as a human, and not really so much of a like I must see everything kind of person.
Oh no, shouldn't do
well,
that.
But
one thing I remember we were having a discussion about this at an earlier time,
Thanks.
where people pointed out that some people, like, they were, I guess, completionists, but like as the video game instincts told them to like look everywhere, to like look for all the loot, even though there's no loot in this game. The info is loot, I guess, but
gotta power up.
I don't know. I was kind of, yeah, I guess it's not everyone's like that. You're not like that. And I'm kind of curious. I was also curious, like, for people who don't play games, if they were played more not completionist, like, in that they look through everything until they find, like, every file cabinet and everything.
Like if I was invading someone's home in real life, I wouldn't be a completionist about it. I wouldn't like look
Well-
through every drawer.
I might be.
More to the point, if you came to your house and your sister and your family was missing, you probably wouldn't be completionist either.
Right? Yeah, I would make some
Stop.
calls. I think
Yeah.
I would probably.
It's 95, okay?
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of plot points they make to, and this is true with the movies too. But like, was the phone out? I know there's a storm, which is why you can't.
Mhm.
The phone I don't believe was supposed to be out.
No, I think, yeah, you just hear the tone, but you
Yeah,
have
dial
no
tone.
control over it.
Mm.
Yeah.
I guess you wouldn't know who to call though, since they don't have cell phones.
So the phone was out. Sorry, I cut out for a second there, but if you picked up the cordless phone, it would give a busy signal.
Oh, the busy signal. I remember a signal, but I didn't identify the tone because I don't know phones anymore.
Right. Yeah. A busy. You would get the busy signal if the line was down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so he was down.
And I guess in terms of completionism, it's probably I need to weigh in here because I'm definitely a completionist with games in general, and with this game in particular, I really spent a lot of time kind of looking at everything.
Yeah.
So, part of it was because it is entertaining, or it was entertaining at least for me in particular, because that was very much stuff that would have been around, when I was, I guess, 12.
Mhm.
So there was the whole nostalgia factor and just generally feeling immersed in it. But also I was worried that I was missing things or missing parts of the different sort of, without, saying anything specific about the plot, but the different sort of parallel plot lines that were going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm a completionist as well, and I must be pretty versed at it, but I went through the bottom floor in like an hour a couple days ago on stream. I just turn everything upside down. There's a cupboard, open the 4 doors, okay, there's nothing, just next, just doing a piece of furniture after piece of furniture. I remember a little bit where I was going to, so that made it faster. Yeah, and I have a note. There's one thing that was kind of cool with the gameplay interaction and the narration is the little notes. Katie's reaction to the objects she's holding come through the description. So when you point at an object, he'll say old crappy newspaper, or he'll say awesome book. There's a couple of them that are pretty fun. One of them was kind of funny. Was oh, that book Dad wrote. It's this very very unimpressed remark about the book that your dad created, and I'm gonna go with the extremely minor spoiler alert. Here is the nudie mags that are described as, "Gosh, Dad, I think that's very,
Right,
very
right.
good. And there's probably a bunch of others later on.
Did we describe talk about who the characters are? Because I think we can do that at this point, and it might be worth at least talking about who you like.
I mean, yeah, honestly, I don't even know that we have all that many things to say without getting into the story. What do you think?
Well, no, I was just going to say that your name, you play a character whose name is Katie.
Yeah, Katie.
And then I think we talked about the sister, the sister. And just so if we reference it later, we can just say it's Sam.
Yeah, Sam is missing.
And then there's a father and a mother, and then we can go from there later. But like, just so we can like refer to names, I want to make sure anyone who's watching this knows who we're talking about.
And even before getting any detail whatsoever, the oh God, have I lost you?
I can still hear you.
Okay.
I'm here.
Our video seemed to not work quite well on my end, at least. Well, we'll see what happens. So far, I consider we're still streaming. What was I gonna say? Yeah. So the dad's you're gonna hear a little bit about his career as a writer, and the mom is a park ranger. You're gonna learn a couple things about those in the kind of like parallel storylines. Yeah, and last thing I remember is the mom is Janice, but I have no idea how the dad is called.
Terry, I think.
What did you say again?
The father's name is Terry, right?
Terry. Okay, sure. I'll take that.
I hope, if I'm wrong, someone please correct me.
Yeah.
But
Mom and dad most of the time.
I think that's fine.
Yeah.
And we were seeing the games through their Katie's eyes, and she would think of them as mom and dad. So
yeah, for sure. Are we all ready for getting into Spoilerland?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're just like itching to break into it at this point.
Yeah. That was also a check on my end that you guys are still here, because I definitely have your picture frozen now. Thanks Skype. Thanks very much. And I think Mirling is dropping in and out. I don't know if you're still here. Yeah, that's what's happening right now. Okay, cool.
Luckily, I'm frozen on my beautiful smile.
Correct.
It's true.
Correct.
It's a place to be stuck on. It's
everybody
that's a good place to
That's
very
solid.
We're all very cool. Ah, there you go. I'm losing you. That's the first step towards redemption, I think. Cool. Well, that's very nice. You're gonna see nice spirals. Still hear me?
I can hear you.
All right.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Moving on then. So spoilers. Well, there is all sorts of spoilers. What should we do? I feel like.
Well, let's set it up. Like we were very introduced that your character comes into the house, and then like we can talk about the first thing she finds. I mean, we can just. I don't know if you want to just go in chronological order, or if you want to just give a synopsis, or actually I don't know what the best way to do this is.
Yeah. Well, what I can say is I wanted to talk about the narration. I'm playing with the camera. This is super distracting. I wanted to say there is actually side stories, basically, right? There is stories that matter, and there is stories that are there to kind of give some immersion. And the story that are there for immersion, I think, are the respective careers of mom and dad. You learn a bunch about mom's transfer to a different park as a park ranger, and promotions and various promotions. In a way,
Ranger Rick, yeah.
Ranger Rick, the coworker,
the hot ranger.
The hot ranger, yeah. There is also stories about her parent attraction to Ranger Rick.
Or at least in the relationship of, I mean, not like a romantic one, but like he's someone that she works with and is friends with to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And also I just as a side note, we find out a lot about that storyline from letters from a friend of hers.
Yeah.
Who seems really like I don't know, just a bit really eager to to egg the mother on into infidelity or something. I don't know. It just very the friend seems like someone from high school, and the letters sometimes read like that.
Yeah.
But it seemed a little. One thing that took me out a little bit is like, isn't your friend gonna like, I don't know, be a little more, urge a little more caution or something? I don't know. It seemed a little strange.
Absolutely.
She's just really into Ranger Rick, man.
Yeah, she's well. I actually I read the first letter, and supposedly she's kind of living vicariously. She seems to be a little bored in her life, and she's kind of envious of Janice to be moving in a big house, basically, and kind of maybe having a life. That's what I read in the very first letter. The other storyline is the dad. The dad is like basically an inspiring how do you say, author. He's writing sci-fi novels on time travel and the JFK assassination. And he gets
Well, I just want to point. It's worth pointing out they're very pulpy. Like I don't know what the best word for it, but like I think it's worth pointing out that you're given the notion that they're not good, or they're, I don't want to say not good, but they're like they're kind of they're not. It's not Philip K. Dick.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of part. That's kind of like part of that's important to his character a little bit to like. And maybe he doesn't feel. And one of the first things you see in his room is a bunch of post-it notes that say "You can do better." So there's a sense that he doesn't feel he's done his luck in his career, I guess. Because he's not just he's written books, but it's also revealed that he is currently writing reviews for Stereo magazine, presumably because he's not getting work from like writing fiction.
Yeah. I mean, there's a what do you say? Several events in this in the storyline where there's a couple where he gets a couple books published, but then his editor refuses to publish the third one. I think that's kind of what I remember happening in some of the notes. And then in parallel, he gets a review audio hardware kind of job, right?
Right.
But yeah, this one is kind of like, yeah, it's one of those for the whole like setup and kind of ambience of the whole family and what exactly is going on in their family. I don't think it's supposed to be very pivotal to the story. Though I must say, I think one of the thing about this game is it gets you. It keeps having you guess what the story is about, right? So it tells you, mom is doing something over there, dad is trying to write books but doesn't really succeed, and what else? Yeah, mostly. I mean, then there's a big storyline that we can come back to. Well, I guess we can start even now. There's the whole story about the uncle going mad. I guess that was kind of supposed to be either.
It's not. Well, I don't know how to interpret it, but there's a. So I mean, just to explain to anyone who hasn't played the game and is listening to the spoiler cast for some reason because they haven't played the game, but it's something that could be missed as well. The house. It's an important plot point, but the house that you're exploring is one that your family moved into, within the past year. The reason why you don't know, as the character Katie doesn't know where things are in the house, is because the family you were on vacation, or not vacation. You were on a trip to Europe, and in the meantime, your family moved to a new house. And the reason was that they inherited it from an uncle who I guess was kind of mysterious. It's revealed that people thought he was weird and maybe a recluse. And I don't understand. There's like once you get far enough in the game, you're in the basement and there's a safe, and if you unlock the code, you see him up. I couldn't understand everything because that was one of the letters that was written, all handwritten, but he he apologizes to his sister, which I believe is the mother of the father. I could be wrong about that. About something he did, and the letter was sent back to him. So there was some transgression. I'd read some thoughts about what it was, but I'm not entirely sure what the meaning is. But I'm not sure if it's him necessarily going mad as opposed to him doing something bad to
I did
either
wonder the entire game what was going on with this guy, and I don't know if you're meant to understand. Like, I wonder if I missed something, or did you find anything, Mirling, about the?
Yeah, I mean, I found the same kind of ambiguous stuff, that there's clearly some history.
Yeah.
But what it is exactly, I don't. It's harder to pin down.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly what. Yeah, I feel like we didn't miss any information. It was just a kind of a put you on the wrong track kind of storyline.
Well,
go for it.
I think it seems dark. It also seems like the game is willing to let you imagine, like, what might exist. So completely separate from that, but this is a good example of what I'm thinking of.
Yes, we're free.
Oh, yes.
Go on.
Hello.
Hey.
I have arrived once more.
All right.
Welcome back.
I know what we're doing.
We started talking a little bit about the father and the mother and also the uncle. But what I was saying is that the game is willing to let you try to imagine or like fill in some of the blanks yourself. So, for instance, the father is a writer, possibly a failed writer, or at least a struggling writer. And it's also revealed that your sister is also a writer, or like she's in high school still, but like she won a scholarship to a school with a writing program, and you see some of her stories from the various over the years.
Yeah.
And so there's supposed to be a connection there. And one thing I noticed is that in what I guess is the father's study, where it has his I guess a rejection letter, or not a rejection letter, but a letter from his editor, and a lot of alcohol, and his bookcases. But you also find a textbook, which is not his, I assume, and I guess a sample of writing that Sam did, I guess, about the reproductive system.
Yes.
And it seems a little strange that it would be in that room unless there's some trying to tie some connection between the two as far as being writers.
Sure. Yeah, I hope. That would make sense. I actually, when I was thinking about this, I was hoping they would have made that this one a little more obvious that he was connected to the dad, because he flew right by me originally when I played the game, that she was like kind of influenced by her dad being an author, and she was like herself pretty like literate and trying to write a bunch of stories and things like this, and I kind of missed a little bit on the implied legacy maybe. But yeah, actually, go for
it. You guys were talking about the uncle a little bit ago. Mm-hmm. I was watching the stream while I was down.
Oh.
And did you guys talk about the pentagram under the stairs?
Right. Well, there's more than just the dad, the uncle going crazy. There is a whole spooky storyline when you start at some stage going within the walls or between the walls.
Yeah.
There's a
the final boss battle with the Lich King is kind of like threw me for a loop. No, was the pentagram there all the time? I assumed that the Sam and I guess we haven't talked about her yet, but and now her mind's escaping me. Lonnie, yeah. I assumed they drew it there.
Yeah,
I don't know. Because I assumed it was the uncle, but maybe.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, there are a lot of secret passages in this house for some strange reason, for reasons that escape me. So it's totally possible.
There is
one of the subplots is that people are like the reason Lonnie is initially attracted to Sam, at least platonically, is that she lives in the spooky house. That everyone knows about. She's like, "Oh, you live in the spooky house? Oh my god, awesome!" and then they go in and like look for ghosts and stuff in the house.
Yeah.
Before we continue, maybe we should like talk a little about Lonnie, since she is one of the most important characters in the game, and we haven't really talked about her yet.
I was gonna say, yeah. I wanted to give Mirling a last opportunity for the spooky storyline before. I think he is going to be the final spoiler, basically, for the story on Sam and Lonnie. Did you Mirling? Did you think anything was going to happen of the pentagram invocation, crazy uncle, scary house, etc., etc.?
No, so I did, and I missed a chunk of your discussion there while I was having some technical difficulties, but I did think that there might be something to that whole thing. I was like, is this game going, is it going supernatural after all? Mm-hmm. Or just, is it like, did she go off the rails in a similar way?
Yeah.
Oh, she seemed unhappy, and unhappy teenagers do weird things.
Yeah, yeah. Let's get in the real final spoiler of what actually is happening. Maybe
before we go, actually, I had a point I wanted to make. Actually, it's about the game mechanics, but it has to do with like the spooky stuff. Uh-huh. A lot of the game designers actually worked on BioShock 2 before this, but I think it's a lot of people have commented over who've talked to me about it. I guess what I've noticed too is like it definitely. Parts of the game you are worried that or you're wondering whether it's going to be a ghost story or something like that. And I think they actually the creators of the game effectively take a lot of the tools and tropes of horror games to and use it effectively. But also, I guess it feels real because sometimes, it may be because I'm a scaredy cat. Like if you're home alone and it's dark or there's a blackout, or sometimes when you're a kid, you just remember being scared of a dark room, even though there's no ghosts there. Yeah. And that's really a real experience that a lot of us have. That it's also invoked by this house because
it's an empty house. Yeah,
it's an empty house with all the lights off, or not all the lights off, but a lot of the lights off.
The thunder.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just very effectively leveraged to in this game, but it isn't really. It gets up to the line, but it never really crosses it as to going into actual horror or anything like that.
Yeah, not nearly, really. I mean, it's.
I guess not horror. I guess I was thinking of something else that we haven't talked about yet.
I'll bet if you replayed this game, like if your next playthrough was a dark run, just no lights, it'd be pretty spooky.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was looking for trailers of the game to show at the beginning, and the number 2 hit is a complete disconnected from the reality horror take on the game. They just put a spooky music and they just cut it very stressfully and just sell it for 2 or 3 minutes like it's a horror game. It's pretty funny to see. But at first I was looking at it, I'm like, is this marketing that's completely lying to us about what the game is?
The answer is yes.
Yeah, but it wasn't marketing. It was something somebody did, but it was kind of funny. Definitely, and a lot of people in the comments are like, "Oh, this game looks this and this game looks that." But no, it's not the game at all. It's just a montage of an empty house to make it sound like a horror movie.
The opposite of that recut The Shining to look like a comedy.
Mm-hmm. This one is excellent too. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I don't. And it's actually, I think, it's not like intentional misdirection by the creators, but if you have a game where the premise is you show up to the house and your family's missing, and then people say, oh, but I can't tell you more because I don't want to spoil it for you. I think a lot of people might think it's a horror type game if that's all you knew.
I will say my wife played this game before me, and she was convinced it was a spooky horror game.
Yeah.
All the way through, the whole way that when she was playing it.
Yeah. I mean, me too, to some extent. So let's just spoil the final. Now that we said what the game really quite isn't about, we should say what it was about, really.
Can I add one final thing to that before you do that? And I know that's the second time I did that, but
you said last time. No,
right.
Yeah,
this is I used up all my tokens. This is my last one. I just wanted to say add that you mentioned the sound design before, and there's a lot. They gave a reasons sometimes you hear like odd sounds, like randomly.
Yeah.
And there's a reason, like they give a reason for that, like it's an old house and things creak, and they mention it several times. But there's I played the game several times, and there's still in the last playthrough, I was definitely like, I hear a sound and like turn around, even though I know there's nothing there.
Something
just,
run
like, very effective
across the room.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Some dark shadow across the room. No, yeah, they do that, and they intentionally do it too. Like I read the report of the electrical engineer in some room, and they say, oh, it's the light flickers all the time and makes funny noise, but we're not going to repair it because that would be too destructive to the house. And you're supposed to be like, oh, the lights are flickering, it makes funny noise, what does this mean? Yeah, I think it's totally there for a reason.
That seems like a very dubious like engineer, like electrical engineer or electrician. Like there's layers of stuff and we can't take it out, but it's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the 90s, man. Things are just looser.
Lights were flickering back then.
Building codes were hardly anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, final warning for the final spoiler. What is really happening in this story?
They're gay!
Sam is falling for her friend, Lonnie, that's a senior at her high school, something like that. And he's very cool and has a band.
Very cool.
Right. Super cool.
Yeah. So
yeah,
it's totally
what I will say about that is going through it with the pacing that the game takes you through, like Lonnie and Sam relationship. I really I was really rooting for them very early on. And I knew, obviously very early that they would be facing adversity because, Lonnie's like this sort of rebellious character. I mean, I was really, I was rooting for them. And it's weird that a game would kind of hook me that quickly into that type of thinking. But I thought it did a great job.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
No, say your positive things, because I'm gonna have a hard task to be the grumpy one on this particular one, as the complete disconnected white male. So please do go ahead.
Well, no, I mean the way, because when I experienced, I mean it's a very specific story about two specific people, but it was done in a way where, I don't know, it just seemed very easy to relate to. Like, it's not just that, two people like meet and they start to fall in love, or at least start to really like each other. But like there's also the whole, it's tied into Sam's like going to a new school and like having to deal with new people. And there's a lot of things that I think a lot of people can relate to that kind of hook you in. And I also think that the fact that the story is told as a bunch of journal entries from Sam to Katie, which they're sisters, so they're very close. But because of the fact that Katie's been gone, it's all still like revealed to you. You get to, in a way that wouldn't be the case with like other types of games. Like Sam will reveal things to her sister that are very intimate. That it's a kind of picture into her life that without that like framing we wouldn't have gotten, but it's very effective in like letting us I guess relate to her, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't think the story would have worked as well if we were anything but Sam's older sister.
Well, at least he would have been much more, he could have been like much less respectful of her intimacy, I suppose, because you could have gotten her straight up diary, and then it could have been much going deeper, but that would be just too much, like innocency, and there would be no privacy. That would be kind of weird. So at least she's telling her sister, which is kind of like the closest you can ever get, or basically to it. Well, yeah. So my problem with the storyline was that, for one, I saw it coming from like room 2 in the house, and that kind of bothered me. So, and the way it was presented at first was, a teacher goes, sends a letter to the parent and goes, "Oh, your kids is writing stuff that I would expect from little boys. I'm pretty concerned." I'm like, okay, that's a little bit weird. And what do we get? We get I don't remember what I've seen. I remember I've seen 1 or 2 clues like this, and then it went motorcycle magazine under the bed. And at the same time, I was like, oh, that's like weird. And like, you know, like, I mean, I don't know how to say it otherwise. Like, just kind of, yeah, like weird stereotype, and just I was like, oh, okay, okay. And then oh, you know, I really like that girl at school. I'm like, all right, okay, we're good. This is
wow,
what's
Greg.
Yeah.
What if she just likes motorcycles? What if it has nothing to do with her sexuality?
Well,
gosh.
Yeah, it started with really the teacher saying like she acts like little boys basically, and I was like, ah. And actually, yeah, like I would have liked something be more surprised, I guess, about it. And then the problem is from there on, it's also kind of only what happens is she's like getting into a relationship with that girl, and I actually don't remember exactly the intricacies of how it goes, but it goes, parents are not very receptive, let's run away. And I don't remember a lot of kind of drama. I don't know if I'm supposed to expect drama, but it was just, you know, discovered my sexuality, found a girlfriend, a little bit of fighting back against the parent. I just don't remember the fighting back against the parent being a lot of events or a long span of time. I just remember being like, oh, okay, she's a lesbian. Oh, okay, the parents don't like it. That's why she's gone. I kind of just remember that.
I thought that there was like some very key events. Like there weren't that many, but there were, I think, 2 or 3 extremely key events.
Okay,
where Sam was trying to go out to a show, I think, and her parents like strictly forbid it for some reason. You know, she has a car, and she was like, "Oh, you're not gonna let me drive places. You let Katie go to Europe or whatever." And then it was like the coming out thing did not go well at all. So
there's a little bit of that. Yeah.
So
I mean,
I had a very different experience, and it might have been because I was continually convinced that there was going to be some horror, some creepiness. Kind of like, you know, I was worried about the sister throughout a lot of it, in terms of like I thought maybe with being isolated in terms of a new school, you know, not having friends there, seeming really lonely. And then on top of that, like, and you know, I maybe, I don't know, I'm obtuse. It took me a little bit longer to figure out that there was a relationship with this new friend rather than just being excited about a new friend. Because I certainly, like, and this might be informed by my own experience, I was pretty isolated at that similar point in my life from friends or anyone, you know, so that's kind of what was on my mind more when I was hearing her experience. But it took me a lot longer to catch on to the relationship aspect of it or the sexuality aspect of it. And also I was just deeply concerned that, like, you know, I was going to find that, you know, she had killed herself.
It's going to be a monster, yeah.
Or there was a monster. Like, those were the two things. People told me it was not horror, so I was like, I'm going to believe them. I'm not expecting a monster right around the corner in that dark shadow or down or whatever. Like, it's not going to happen. It's fine. I'm fine. Let's just turn the lights. It's okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I was like a little bit of the like this is something horrific is going to happen, or just something on a much more like personal level is horrific is going to happen for you know, within a family.
Yeah.
That some, you know, someone feeling so outcast and so rejected by family and by most peers, you know, that's where my mind went.
Yeah. And meanwhile, I was like, "Where's the monsters?"
Yeah. Very meaningful. I mean, I took it as much less predictable.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm just like Mira. I was I don't know if I was just slow, but I didn't catch on right away either. I do think I agree that, like, if you look at synopsis of what happens, do seem to be like a lot of stereotypes. We're like there's a girl and she's a punk and she has like pink hair and so that she must be the rebel and like everything's. But like I think the fact that there's so much detail in like the artifact, like the letters and the storylines that Sam writes about her, her as being like a I don't know what her alter ego was in her fiction, but like a pirate captain, and that like parts of her personality come through in that. There's a lot of little details that made it feel, even though the rough outline is kind of very familiar, that it still felt more real because of all those little like flourishes. I will say though, the ending is a little wrapped up a little bit too nicely. And for one thing, you can't just running from the army. It's kind of actually a big problem, and I don't know what happened to them, but like they just ran off into the sunset more or less, and like it just if you think about it a little bit, like that's kind of like it's one of those things about fiction where you can like end it, whereas like if you think about what happened in real life, it'd probably be kind of messy because they're young and who knows if they're gonna stay together. I mean, like if you really think it out, like it could get very messy in a lot of different ways. But like the story's over.
A crappy teenage decision that's probably going to have consequences.
Right.
Oh, I mean, I don't know. It didn't seem like a happily ever after exactly. Like at least in terms of, it was happier than I thought it was about to be, right? But
sure. Yeah.
But like I didn't have that like feeling of like everything's tidy because I was like, this is going to immediately cause problems for everyone. It's going to be like very hard to fix. Yeah,
for sure. But and again, like I keep coming back to, I think one of the point was still to make you believe something was going to happen until the very end. And what I just remembered is definitely a big point, is that the actual end of the game. There's another final spoiler. Final spoiler. You finally get to the attic, which is like the very hard to get to area. Like it's super
the very last.
Yeah,
Lock.
and in the attic, this is like the hotel for all the cold stuff. You have one last thing to say before we get to the final spoiler?
Well, I would say I really respect your desire to like warn like the small part of the population who's played like 2 hours and 30 minutes of this game, but didn't get to the last part yet.
Right.
So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's just structures. It's fake tension I'm introducing here. So the very final thing is getting to the hotel in the attic, and there is all the spooky stuff and the like the lights, and maybe there is one final kind of hotel with candles. I don't remember the exact detail, but I think it's still pretty tense what exactly the hell you're gonna find in the attic when you just get there. And finally you see that's it, that there's the journal, and her story is that it's what's happening with Lonnie. It's nothing else. So I feel like there's a bit of, it kind of feels, and again, I didn't feel that back then, but now thinking about it, I wonder if the makers of the game didn't go a little bit, screw you, games can also be about two people fighting for each other and running away, and that's it, like very explicitly to the player,
Well, I mean, I gotta say, I don't know of I mean, I can't off the top of my head think of a way to end it that's strictly better, I feel like it had a very natural and you could maybe say predictable ending, but it was also very believable what happened, and also very sweet.
Yeah, not commenting on so much about the story being about this, but the fact that they lead you up all the way to just being wondering and having tension. Like if the story is really going to be about this, like do you need to go all the way through the supposedly peak of the game before you stop everything, all along the way being like, is it horror or is it not? Is it
I don't think so. But
distract
go
a
ahead.
little bit from,
need to be mysterious for it to be interesting to play. Is that what you're asking?
I guess no. What is the point basically of kind of leading the player on all the way to maybe it's actually about devil summoning and the kind of messed up kids could have done in this attic with those candles and whatnot. It's not like it ends in a room with a journal and something completely like why. the tension. I get the tension is because basically it's so that there is a last quote unquote action to the story. Last bit of tension. What is it going to be in the attic? But the way they justify this last peak of like the tension is about that, isn't it? It's about like, oh, what the heck is in the attic with the funny lights and the pentagrams?
Right. Well, I don't know, but maybe it's a bit of because like it's interesting how we're interpreting some of these things differently. Because at that point, I wasn't like worried at all that there would be like, some sort of horror type ending. But like, and maybe this is what you're talking about. So, and I might be wrong, but when I was worried that it would be like like a bad tragedy, like that, like Sam would have committed suicide or something. That they definitely like give you like things like makes you do things to make you worry that might actually be the outcome, and it's not that. I mean, it's a spooky house, but I forgot when I realized that there's not going to be anything spooky, but like and more was started to worry that like it'd be a TBS, or I don't know, like some sort of like bad movie that's on cable.
Yeah. Maybe that's what it is. You're supposed to just worry about what the hell has she done to herself or to anything when you get into the attic.
That's where I was more by that very last point. I was worried that it just turned into a family tragedy.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel. Do you have even a final just revelation about her actual story, or it's just like it's just explaining you the game basically? Because that's kind of what it does to me. Is you get there and you're like, what is it gonna be? Oh, it's the journal. That's why I'm hearing my sister's voice in my head for the whole time.
Well, sorry. I think what it is, for me at least, is that the mystery's there to like keep you going. But when I got to the end, what actually happened was that while I was trying to figure out what happened, I really became attached to these, to Sam and Lonnie and all the characters.
That was your last second to do that. Then it's like credits.
Well, no, but then you wander around the house again afterwards. I mean, it allows you to do that. You can be a completionist. You can do what
New
you
Game
want.
Plus.
Yes.
Well, so hypothetically, Greg, what would you have rather seen in that attic?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, that's a tall order to ask me what to put in there instead. But
I'm here to give you tall orders, and you're here to fulfill them.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, no, just to I mean, from a narration standpoint.
Darth Vader going no.
Yeah, like from a narration standpoint, like this is the end of the game. There is going to be a final movement to the story. There's going to be some sort of tension. So we already established that. I actually don't fully remember what I was thinking was going to happen, but I definitely was like, yeah, you get into the attic, what is it going to be there? So the tension is about this, or is it about what? And then you get there, and what do you discover? How like if you were writing the book of the story of the game, how'd you end that, And then she went into the attic and she found a journal. And I guess it's sort of a story of, yes, the final word is yes, she's gone, and you have to deal with this. She decided to be somewhere else, and you'll have to not worry for her and let her do her thing, basically. Or what's the actual final point of this story?
Yeah, but I mean, and maybe this is a bad thing, but like I guess I'm just reiterating a point, but I kind of feel like they used the mystery as almost a trick to let you learn about the characters, but the point is to learn about the characters and the family and their lives. Yeah. And it's almost like, at least for me, once I've got to the ending, like the mystery almost making me sad the point, because I was just like, thinking about these people and like enjoying the fact. And yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like the mystery is almost like a MacGuffin. It's like there to get you to the end, and then you realize that what you're doing was like.
I'm not saying I want a mystery. It's just how do you structure your story when you tell the story about Sam and Lonnie that discover each other and have troubles, and then what? How do you write that? Or what was supposed to be the conclusion to this? I mean, to me, the conclusion was. There's an attic, and you find the journal, and yeah, you already knew the story. Like there's nothing that happens in this attic at all whatsoever.
You know how I'd write it is there'd be like a full length mirror, and when you look in the mirror, you're actually the spooky uncle the whole time.
Oh my god.
Done.
I was like really
This is
happy
Night
with
Shyamalan level.
Yeah. Got him.
I was really happy with the ending the way it was. I felt like it like answered my questions. It was sort of like the way the ending of a story would be written or a TV show or something. I really had no problem with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, in all seriousness, I agree with that. I felt satisfied. I felt like it was a good use of roughly 2 hours. Just like a little look into it, like a little snapshot of this family's life. So
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't want to spend. I don't want to spend 2 hours on this. I just want to have the final word. Okay. Yeah. Like I would agree to this if there was no addict whatsoever. Like I'd be like, okay, the story is about this, blah blah blah, and so on. It's just wrapping a bow and finding a conclusion or whatever. But that's the story is the story of your sister running away. Yeah.
Sorry, I was wondering if you wanted to use this as a segue, because one of the things what you mentioned about we were talking about how we would do this if this was a book, and it's kind of interesting to think about how this story, this I don't even want to use story, but this experience would be different if it was a book or a movie. What does a game bring to this way to tell a story as opposed to a book? Because it's a very different experience. I mean, you could write a book where the same plot points happen, and I feel like it'd feel very different. In some ways, it might be better, but in some ways, you'd be missing something too. Yeah. I shouldn't say better, but there'd be different things that were.
Yeah, we should do like the final part of this cast. We've lasted a bit already, so we're gonna let's do a meta conversation. So, this is like a vessel, right, for a story. To me, it's very much about narration. This game, you agree it's still a game, right? It's an interaction narrative.
It depends. I think it's a game, but I see my interpretation from people who say things like this are not games is that their definition of games is that games have a challenge, like a puzzle or like a reflex, where if you think of it just as an interactive system, which could be used for that, but also could be used for narration or both, then you do consider it a game. So I kind of fall in the latter group, but I think it's not that interactive narrative fiction and it's existed since computers have been around, but they become in the video game world, they've become nearly popular in the past few years, and there's been a fight, I guess, or like a discussion about where they fit.
And we don't.
I mean, I think it's all semantics, really, when you get down to it. If you want to get sort of pedantic about it, I don't think that they are games. I think they're interactive storytelling. I mean, it has more in common with a book than it does with, say, baseball, which I think we would all agree is a game. And by that rule set, you could say that a game is also, Metroid or something like that. There's rules, there's challenges, there's a win condition, there's a lose condition. This game has none of those things, or rather, this interactive experience, I should say, has none of those things. But I do think that it's all, it's just kind of whatever, right? It's out there. You can play it, certainly, in the same way that you can read a book. And I think that's fine. I don't think labels are super important, but I think it's interesting to talk about like what it's akin to and what it isn't.
Well, the interesting thing is that culturally speaking, I agree it's semantic, and I fall in the other camp, but I see where your side's what you're saying is kind of, I see what your the distinction is, but culturally, people who this is disseminated through the people who play these games usually more often than not come from the gaming community, like people who play video games. There's people when Gone Home was written up. It was mostly written up in gaming sites. People talked about it on gaming forums. It's not like the main audience came from literary forums. They said, "Oh, there's a new form of fiction." So I don't know how that means how we should define it, but like I think a lot of the reason why people become feel like this fight is important is because they want to make sure, since it's a place it has in the culture, it's as part of video game culture, that they're afraid that that some people who don't want to call games, not you, but want to.
Could be me. You don't know me.
Well, okay. I don't want to imply that it's you without knowing you, I guess, but want to limit its reach in, I guess, the video game culture.
No, I actually think that the reach should be broadened. I think that my grandma should be playing this game. I really do think that anybody who reads books should be playing this sort of thing.
I agree.
So, I guess I fall very strongly into it's a game. I feel like people are not trying to argue that things that have sort of a similar, I mean, I don't know, predecessors maybe, that are, say, Monkey Island, right? Where you're just walking around in a world, you're talking to people, you're solving some puzzles, kind of more complex maybe than the puzzles you're solving in this game, but is the difficulty of a game really what determines whether it's a game or not?
Yeah.
I don't think so. You still have to find keys and then get into doors and whatever, and maybe that's kind of like beside the point of the main plot, but it's still a game, and it's still something that would be a very different experience in any other medium.
Yeah, we're relying on this one. For me, it's the medium is really kind of the basic components of it. A movie has potentially most likely sound and moving pictures. A book has a bunch of text that you read, and a video game has an interactive, interface for you to make it kind of do its thing. And a movie doesn't have to tell you a story. A movie can be a bunch of pretty things to look at sometimes, or some complete artsy-fartsy nonsense, or some bunch of people shooting each other, or something funny, or etc. And to me, a video game is like, I mean, at the bare minimum, the game is gonna get you to make it go through its thing. Even in this game, like if you sit there and you just don't do anything, you just like the game is not gonna happen without you. And you can say the goal of the game is to go until the end and figure out what actually the story is. Like you do need to solve a couple puzzles, etc. So I'm game. I'm in game team.
All right, I'm outnumbered 3-1, man. I can't argue with those odds.
I almost want to feel like I wouldn't call it the devil, like the devil's advocate side, but like I kind of want to actually push this a little bit in the related direction, but like because the whole. If it's true, whether we call it this Gone Home a game, it is true that the main draw is about the narrative and not about solving puzzles or shooting.
Sure, but doesn't redefine.
No, I'm not trying to make that argument. My point is that given that that's a fact, I think the more interesting question is why is it useful? And I do think it's very useful, but it's really good to think about in detail why it is useful to have fiction told by this means. I really enjoy it, but I think I enjoy it partially because I like video games and it's something that's drawn to. But I've been thinking about what kind of stories these kinds of like something like Gone Home tells well, maybe tells better than other types of stories, and maybe what times they don't, and whether. I know this is like kind of stuff that the game developers are still figuring out, and they're developing new game mechanics in different situations to try to tell different stories. But like, I kind of wonder, especially for a game like Gone Home, where a lot of this, it's all a story told based on finding artifacts, basically, or finding objects and inferring a story. If it kind of like pushes like the narrative to certain kinds of like, especially in mysteries.
I mean, I think it's worth noting that if you just wrote a book that was like the narrative of Gone Home, like I walked up to my door, I read a letter on the door, it said this, I opened the door, I went to the left. Like if someone wrote a book like that, it would be awful. It would be a terrible book. The better book would be a first person book on Sam meeting Lonnie, and that's a teen novel that anybody could read, right?
Or composed of the bits and pieces of of different correspondence, and you put it together that way.
Yeah, you don't do the movie the way you do the book, the way you do the video game. Please don't try and do that. Just want to acknowledge. So we have a Simple Machine.
You didn't like Mortal Kombat, the movie?
Hey man, don't knock Mortal Kombat.
Okay,
it was great.
Maybe the one exception. Yeah, we have Simple Machine in our viewers that's asking are choose your own adventure books games. He's trying to trick us, I think, because this one is all right. So you read a story, but you're interacting with it. Yeah, I'm game team. I'm game team again. But yeah, it's
only if wait, hold on. Only if it's an ebook.
Not a game, but it's a game.
Yeah, because
I disagree.
It's akin to a board game.
Not a game.
It's akin to a board game.
I have a board game called Arabian Nights.
I was going to say that.
Choose your own adventure. You go around on a board. It has some kind of, matrix tables, whatever. But it's essentially choose your own adventure, the competitive board game.
Yep.
So it's
And it's also much more about creating a narrative than it is about anybody winning anything.
I mean, interestingly, a lot of those choose your adventure books actually have win and lose conditions.
Yeah.
Most of them. Most conditions are you die.
Yeah. I remember I had a dinosaur-themed one where you walk into the wrong dinosaur park and a T-Rex eats you.
Was that the dinosaur robot? Because I had a dinosaur robot. I'm sorry to try and one up you right there, but
no, we're not robots. They were just regular dinosaurs.
I don't know if this will make.
Pretty cool.
I don't know if we can have the opinion that piss everyone off, but honestly, this question I was very interested in about 3 years ago. At this point, I just get kind of a little tired. I mean, I'm on one side more or less, but I feel I see like the other side. But like, I think I just kind of get bored because it's a question of whether you find value in this kind of work, and if you do and want to engage in it, that's kind of like for me the important thing. If not, then you can do your own thing.
No one actually really cares if we're gonna fall on the game or not game side. I think it's interesting the peripheral conversations we had about it.
Well, I think it's valuable to think of it as not a game. Actually, it has more value than to think of it as a game, because if it's not considered a game, then you get a much wider audience of people who are non-gamers and possibly even being exposed to gaming through this medium.
And that's funny because that straight up depends on your agenda, because I was thinking of completely opposite angle of if you say it's a game, then you can maybe make gamers care about something slightly different than shooting people.
Right.
Well, I think the main limiting factor is the economic, because like the way Gone Home is distributed is by Steam, and like whether you consider it a game or not, a video game or not, the underlying like hardware and like technology that's used to distribute it and create it and view it is the same technology that you would need to play a game. So people who have access to games also have access to this kind of media. And if you don't, like if you were really into books but don't have access to computer games because you just didn't buy a computer that does it, or then you're not going to be able to be exposed to it. So there's kind of a limiting factor already based on our current economic arrangements, and maybe that should be changed. I think that should, because I agree that I wish more people who weren't playing gamers were like interested in this kind of work. But I mean, it's worth noting that when I first, like 3 years ago, when I first tried to play this, I tried to play it in my MacBook Air, and the frame rate was too low, and I couldn't. And like probably 3 years later, people have better computers, so it's not as bad. And it's on. But like you need at least certain level of hardware to even play this. And some games are better. Like some games, I shouldn't say better, but they're more accessible because they're on like the Android or iOS or something like that. But it's just the avenues to it's just worth noting, I guess, that the avenues to access this kind of work is also the same avenues to access most video games.
Yes, but that's broadening every day. The iPad is changing all of that. So, and even on your phone.
And somehow you don't particularly see narrative-driven content all that much on iStores either, though.
Mm-hmm.
It's still because I mean the mere fact is, and I keep coming back to the medium. To me, is kind of the game, and having somebody interact with the screen and controlling a character and going through places and going through the motions of several hours of interacting with blah 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 with software is still something you mostly get gamers to do. Still, as of now.
I mean, that is a semantic definition you can assign to game.
Yeah,
I will admit that.
But it's also has the effect of if you even a soap opera that a wide majority or like a wide audience could enjoy, if you make it so that you have to play the soap opera, I don't know how many people are ready for this even yet.
I think it depends on the age demographics you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think kids across the board or younger people who are on their phones all the time are probably much more open to various things. And you're seeing a lot of social type games, unfortunately, but that's kind of an intro to games for people. And you see kind of a really wide variety of people who don't identify as gamers playing those sorts of games. So, maybe the more complex or more interesting mechanics, less kind of terrible free-to-play stuff will start penetrating more to people who don't consider themselves gamers.
Yeah, I wonder then if they're going to start coming a bit. I do remember I actually talked to a company a couple of years ago, that were making exactly this. They were making choose your own adventure, novella, episodic, kind of reminding me of Kim Kardashian, a little bit vapid boyfriend-girlfriend stories where you kind of choose every action one after the other. I don't know that it kind of flew off the shelf, though. Not sure if that actually happened.
Not vapid enough.
I don't know. I don't know what exactly was the limiting factor, but I'm not aware of this becoming huge things. Then again, nowadays, there could be some things with tens of dozens of thousand followers that we wouldn't know about. But yeah, we had a list of a couple of games that were kind of similar to this and possibly inspired or similar. I don't know many of them myself. Well,
I don't know how many are directly inspired. Partially because
Similar.
video game development takes so long that a lot of games that came out in the past few years were probably already partially in development when Gone Home came out. But I mean, there are a lot of people who interact, and I know some people. I think some of the people who worked on Gone Home are like friends with people who worked on the game that came out this year, Firewatch, and actually the same guy did the music for both. And that's another game that is, and I like it in the same way, a first-person interactive fiction, which in some ways was really done well. In some places, I think didn't do as well. But I kind of feel like what changed is the discussion. Like when Gone Home came out, it felt it wasn't new, but like the idea that this would be a very successful, almost not mainstream, but a very successful thing was kind of new. And now it feels more just matter of fact to a certain extent. I mean, they're still considered indie games mostly that are with a limited audience, but it feels much more normalized than...
It's broken through, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the explosion of the indie scene was around that time as well. Like, the mere extremely successful foreign indie gaming title was very, very new at the time as well, at large. I mean, like, more or less 1 year or two, like, the entire Minecraft braids, and it really exploded very, very big.
I feel like, though, Minecraft and Braid came a few years earlier. I just remember very distinctly. they're very distinctly. I think before this, the main one was The Walking Dead and that had more gameplay elements, but it kind of like people thought, oh well, this is actually a really good narrative, like a fiction.
Were they really separated by that much?
No, they came out 1 year apart.
Oh really? The Walking Dead was a year before Gone Home, right?
I'm pretty sure.
Huh. Just completely fact-checking you right off the bat. But,
that's fine.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. But either way, yeah, you say over 6 months before.
And
oh no, April even you started. Yeah, but just about a full year before. Cool. Yeah.
I think the fact that Gone Home was done so well, kind of like made it so even the games that come after, even if they're like not as good or maybe like really experimental, like Proteus, say, maybe I think at least for a lot of the audience, they're still kind of framed in a different, like there's a new category that they kind of fall into as opposed to
something to be said for The Walking Dead not being, being a larger intellectual property.
Yeah.
So
and still being about shooting zombies because
yes,
based much more on the whole franchise success. Whereas Gone Home, it's more notable that it came to popularity completely on its own.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it was already a big thing for people to be like, look, half of the Walking Dead game is about making choices and accepting the consequences and the story that unfolds from your choices. So very much like just story, and that's it. That was half of Walking Dead, and then Gone Home was like, look, this game looks very well done and kind of interesting, but basically it is all about a story and just walking around and discovering the story. So yeah, I think that made it very kind of stand out on its own already.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to sign off pretty shortly.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think we're about wrapped up anyways. We've done off most of the...
I remember when you were worried that this would only be like, I thought, not worried, but thought this would be a really short one.
We digressed a tiny bit. No, I wasn't worried about that. We're like 4 people. We have Skype to make us lose 10 minutes in the middle.
Oh, this is true.
Easy.
So I'm just going to plug my Twitch stream real fast. It's twitch.tv/Corvo, spelled like right under my face.
I'll put some links as well. Yeah. Be sure to subscribe to this one. Did you get something, Mr. Clam?
Well, if you just want to follow anything I do, my Twitter handle is moral _ hazard at moral_hazard.
Moral hazard. Yeah, I'll be sure to put links for everybody. What about you, Marilyn?
This little puppy would like to remind you to adopt a pet.
Okay.
She came from the she's perfect.
Yeah, if you leave your references, we'll totally contact you about that. Awesome. Well, I'm plugging my multiple links for every video on responsible gaming. Not every day, but almost every day. They're all on the side. I need to find... I'm always pointing like this at the end of the show. It's very graphic. So follow Responsible Gaming. Do like and subscribe and send all your comments, and we'll definitely read them and try and include that in our next episodes. Looking forward. Probably do another episode quite soon, so keep in tune.
All right,
that's fun. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Bye bye, everybody.
Thank you. That's good.